Awesome. We're live. So jumping into 30 food safety, where we're interviewing the brightest food safety experts for 30 minutes. And today we got Jorge Hernandez from Wendy. So Jorge, thanks for jumping on. We're really excited to chat.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited about this conversation and I appreciate the opportunity to share my story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. Well, would love to hear from the start. How'd you get into the food safety space? What was your journey jumping into food safety?
Absolutely. Everybody has their own journey and they're all different. Mine started very, very young. And I can go back to, when I was very young and I have family members who lived in the mountains in Mexico City. I'm from Mexico, in the Sierra Madre. And, during my childhood, it impacted me, the way that some disadvantaged people lived and, the lack of access to medical care and to sanitation and the impact they had in their lives, their personal health and death and stuff like that. That was always very, very impactful. And from very, very early age, that kind of moved me, a strong calling, I would say, to do something about their pain and illnesses and things. So, I thought going into a career in medicine would be my calling, to try to do something about it, for people who could be impacted for those kind of situations. But then as I progressed through medical school, I stumbled into the field of environmental health, and I became a health inspector for a local health department in Illinois, near Chicago, your home base,
Yeah.
right, in Winnebago County. And that kind of changed my life quite a bit. As I was doing this food inspector job, it dawned on me that preventing illness was even one more noble than curing it, because it saved people from all of the pain and suffering and all of those things, right? And to me, it became a higher calling, a greater mission. It was anything that I could do to prevent people from getting sick to begin with, or getting very ill and going to the hospital or even dying. That to me was something that I could dedicate myself to, right? Something I really could do. And that's when I fell in love with environmental health and food safety in particular. As I reflect back into it, it changed my job to a career. It went from I want to do something, to get a job and get paid and stuff, like I want to do something because I want to make an impact in others. I want to make sure that wherever I am, I can have the assurance that people are eating food that are safe. And I realized at that point in my life that food safety is a human right. It's not only about food, but if the food is not safe, it's a problem. So doing that, it actually changed my perspective and what I was doing and how I was doing it. And it just, from there I took off, the frustrations and the times and things, it didn't matter. I just wanted to do something for others that have a meaningful impact. I felt like providing safe food was what I wanted to do. And that's how I fell into the career. From there, things started happening to me, to my career, and went from one thing to another, and here I am. The number one in one of the largest companies that produce food, in the United States, and very well known in the world. So very, very excited about that.
I love the journey of calling and starting as wanting to maybe be more reactive on the medicine side. I feel like a lot of people fall into food safety. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people grow up and they're like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, but you don't see maybe many kindergartners saying, hey, I want to, work in food safety? Why do you think that is?
Maybe because people don't realize it, or maybe it's because people take it for granted. Especially in this country, because that's not true, at least from the safe food perception all over the world as I travel. But in the United States, we just take it for granted. Our food is safe. I don't expect it, or I didn't consider that this may be something that'll make me sick. As you travel, or as I travel around the world, and there are other countries that you're very careful what you eat and when you eat. Certain foods, that you're really taking a risk. We don't do that in the United States. And because you don't do that, you don't put it together into what that can do to ensure that this happens. Our field of food safety is not as well known as that of medicine. So people who like me want to do something for others don't even consider, because they're blind to it. They don't realize it. You really have to dig into it to realize that it exists and that you as a person can have an impact for others in that way, which I think it will do fantastic. And hopefully this is the kind of stuff that alert people to these careers, because it's a fantastic career, it's a fantastic field. And more people will be excited. Maybe not kindergartners, but perhaps people in middle school or high school, they're running to these kinds of videos will get into it. At least
Yeah,
that's my wish.
yeah, and I think people like you, like they just know the impact. Or a lot of people like food and they don't know that they can work with food every day, help keep it safe, do all of that. So that's really great. Well, yeah, Jorge, would love to hear, like, catch us up to speed. You're, VP of QA at Wendy's now. What was your journey from public health to up to Wendy's where you are now? What was that process? And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, my first professional job was as a health inspector. Working with in food safety, actually, in water safety, environmental health overall. Food safety became my calling, as I just mentioned, or something that really got into it. And I started working very hard at the local health department. Very, very interesting at the time. What I realized, the things that I was doing at the time were not making an impact. I became very discouraged. There's a point here that I learned very quickly. That the way we were going about protecting food safe food, it was not making an impact. Then I started to learn to look out for different way of doing it. Checking different things and doing different stuff. I found people like me in the field who were trying a different way of doing it. At the time was a concept called HACCP, which is now very well known, but at the time was starting to it. And starting to look at those principles, starting applying to my job, and that started making an impact. I started to see changes and things like that. That got me very, very excited because of the work I did there and knowing the people that I had been reached out. I actually went from the local health department to the state health department. I went from Rockford, Illinois to the state in Springfield, Illinois, in charge of the food safety program, working with the food safety program and working with the standardization of all of the inspectors across the state, trying to work with them in different ways to apply the food code through different techniques to ensure the safety of the food to us. So that was a very exciting job. So I went from local health department to state health department, still food safety, but now in a broader scope, bigger impact. Was having a lot of fun there, doing my thing, and still trying new things. Again, trying new things. Not happy with it. You're gonna hear that a lot. Not happy with the status quo. When the FDA came in into Illinois, and I went to a course and stuff, and they saw what I was doing, and actually I shared some of the things that I was trying to apply those concepts into what I was doing into the program and different stuff, and they really liked it. And actually, they called me in to be part of a program called Federal State Training Program, where they take people from the states to other states to tell them, this is what other people are doing, this is how you should be doing. At the time, the people that were there, we say, look, states learn better from peers than from the feds. So they're trying to do that. And that was a very exciting time for me because I got to go all over the country, talking about the things, the successes and the things that didn't quite work well in our program in Illinois, and they would share their experiences. It became very exciting time for me. I was doing that and it was having a lot of fun. We were having a lot of good results. More and more states, more and more health departments were adopting these new concepts, these new principles, and how to approach food safety. When actually I got called from the National Restaurant Association. And what they were saying is that, look, we look what we're doing, how you're working and stuff like that. We want you to look at those concepts and work with us to develop a food safety training program for our restaurants. So that what you do can be taught so that they can prevent. So when the inspector comes, they look at the way they're doing things and they match, right? In protecting the public health and protecting the safe. We really think that you can do that. We have a course, they already did at the time, who was used for culinary school students. That it was very much into how do you use it in a 2-year school, and he said, but it's not working very well, and it's too academic. It's something that it can be applied for any restaurant, depending on the size or anything, and it matches the approach that you're taking with the regulators into produce safe food. The things that you have. So I thought it was a fantastic opportunity. Yeah. They said, do that, we're going to help you work with all of our members. Sometimes they can't talk to each other, but they'll talk to you. What works, what doesn't work, where you do that. So you can put together this program, and I did. It was a fantastic time. We put together the program, and we launched it, and it became a huge, huge success.
Wow.
It's called
ServSafe. What was some of the feedback that made it a success?
It was applied. It was not so theoretical. It was the things that we knew because of the members were using their work. Not only the information, but how to teach the information, how to break it down. The things that we did. It did have the essential principles of science, but also they have some concepts of this is more critical than this. For your time here, so it made it a lot more workable. Let's put it that way. And we launched it, and it took off from there. It was fantastic. It was so it worked for the National Restaurant Association educational portion for a number of years, developing the program. First, second, third, fourth, fifth edition. It was going very well, and then it went from national to international. And we were doing a lot of things. Again, protecting public health. Now you have people who were trained at the restaurants, learning how to do it and applying those principles. And then when I was there, we had ways of getting feedback. Oh, no, this doesn't make sense. And then we would revise it and work with the instructional designers to make it more applicable. So it was a lot of fun. It was a great time. And I got an opportunity to jump into the industry. There was an organization that was in a little bit of trouble. They wanted to develop a new program for food safety and quality assurance, and they wanted somebody who can understand how to communicate it, how to train it across a large number of facilities in a large different types of businesses, from distribution centers to processing facilities to processors and suppliers developed to them. So for a program that they would use all of that. And I thought that opportunity was very scary, and that's why I took it. It was very exciting. Right now, you have the food safety bug, and you can make a bigger impact, right?
Yeah.
It's like, at the time, $22 billion organization.
Wow.
The company, it was called U.S. Food Service at the time. Now it's called U.S. Food.
So you were scared, and you said, "I want to jump into this," even though you're a little nervous.
Absolutely. Take the risk or lose the chance, my friend. So did, and I did that, and it was a very exciting time. Learned a lot. Felt like the impact. I was actually able to provide safer food for a larger number of people. It was being very, very, very excited. I stayed there for a number of years in the Chicago area. In Rosemont. So that went very well. We were working very, very good. And then there was another organization that tried to buy us out. Cisco tried to went through some issues, and it became a little bit challenging to do the work because we were being bought. But then again, there was the government said you can't buy this organization because they've got the two biggest guys. It restricts, commerce and stuff. Long story short, it became a very challenging time for us to do our job and then try to figure out all of those things. So, stepped out of that for a little bit, the corporate world for a while. And for a little time, I went to work for a company that was a startup. I met these wonderful people actually started a company. They had one restaurant and they wanted to grow it into a small chain. And they said, here we have no programs. Can you come and help us put it up? Wow, that sounds exciting. I never done that. Again,
from the ground up.
From the ground up, from zero, my friend. So I did that, in the 2.5 years that I was there, we grew from 1 to 7 restaurants, 1 processing facility. Very different environment when you work with, with an entrepreneur. We went to that. I never done that, and it was very exciting. Very high highs, very low lows. Very fast moving, right?
Sometimes too exciting.
Sometimes too exciting, right? So definitely. It was doing that, and then Wendy's came and called and said, we might have an opportunity for you if you have a good fit here. And it was Wendy's, right?
Yeah.
And so I came in, and I already knew the company very well. You have to create a reputation. And I just fell in love with the people who work here, and with the the culture, and the way that they treat their people was fantastic. So I made the jump, and it's been 6 years now, and it's been a fantastic ride so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. I think just having heard you speak in other places, it sounds like one of the biggest things you do well is one, focus on communication. Like how are people hearing what you're saying? You said that I think at Food Safety Consortium. And then also just it sounds like you're able to bridge between inspectors and industry, between nonprofits or third parties and then the industry. Are those the things that you think you're like pretty proud of in your career? Is building bridges, communicating, high impact?
Yeah. Thank you for recognizing that. That's very interesting, because for a person whose English is a second language,
Yeah.
when you said communication is your strength, like, really, you know. But I think that taught me something. When I came to this country, I couldn't speak English, and I still speak with an accent, but I'm very proud of it. But the thing that it taught me was, the communication is not only about what you say, but about listening to the other person, understand where they're coming from, right? Trying to see it from their point of view, and you use not only your words, but your meaning, and you be able to that has helped my career tremendously.
Yeah.
Because it allows me to talk to somebody on the front line of a restaurant, or at the back, at the dishwasher in the back of the house, to a CEO of a company, right? I look for those communication clues, not just
Yeah.
by what they said, but how they say it, how they post it, what are the things they're coming from, what is their point of view, so that I can match it. And that has been, so you're very keen observer. That has been one of the things that has helped me, personally, and it's one of the things that I'm most proud of, right? My background.
Yeah. That's amazing. What would you say is like some of the biggest challenge or one of the biggest challenges you faced in your career?
There've been a number of challenges, but you know what? As I reflect on them, especially as I was preparing for this interview, for this chat, it's like, I don't necessarily see them as challenges, but I see it as an opportunity. The
Yeah.
reason for that is each one of them has become a goal to overcome, or a goal to use it to my advantage. I just told you about the fact that one of the bigger ones that I have is, a lot of times people judge you by the way that you look or talk, and the people not always give me the credit that I have, because I have an accent, and they thought, oh, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about, or maybe he's
Yeah.
not as intelligent as he should be to have those kinds of positions. So I kind of overcome that, use it to my
Yeah.
advantage, be able to do that, so that's one thing that was a barrier, and I've been able to actually, like I said, not only overcome it, but use it to my advantage as much as I can. uh, the other ones that I have is, when it comes to the field of food safety, we're very, very, very undervalued in the business world,
Yeah.
because of that feeling that that's something that just everybody says. The value that we can bring to the business is not always obvious. So I try to use my skills and my communication and my influencing into bring set. You do food safety, it's not only the right things to do, but if you do food safety quality right, food safety too, your business will be more successful. You
Yeah.
develop the discipline to apply to other things. You'll be able to work, a lot better and more consistency. You'll be able to do a lot of the things that are going to bring you more customers, more money, be able to do things. It is a set of mind, not as a thing that you thought that you do. It's how you do it to be able to do that. So that has been one of the things that, that I feel sometimes our field is very undervalued. That we need to
Yeah.
communicate. It is about providing safe food, but it's also about making the business a lot more successful. And you can
Yeah.
do it. You can do that.
Do you have a specific example? You don't have to name names or companies, but a time where maybe you thought, hey, food safety is being undervalued, and you were able to convey it to, the organization or the CEO to actually get them to adopt what you were trying to do?
So in one of the organizations that I work, that's a very good question. Remember, the way the organization had grown was by buying companies,
Yep.
and they never normalized it. Every company had their own standard procedures, their own things. When the CEO came and they hired me, one of the first things they do is we all going to do it one way. We're all going to have one food safety program, one quality program, one regulatory program. Regardless of where you came from, we're going to be able to do that. That standardization helped the organization become more efficient, more effective in the business. Later on, one of the things that I'm very proud is that I was able to gain enough support and credibility with my leadership team, my CEO and the senior leaders, to actually get him to get our distribution centers at the time certified in food safety, which is a very high bar to get, at a level of GFSI certification to be able to do that. Not because of the food safety, because of the business discipline that allows us to become better. And then I went to the University of Michigan, and one of their professors to do a study side by side as we went through the certifications. In one side with all of the distribution centers that had been certified, and another one was the ones that were not, and to do a business comparison.
Yeah.
Into it, and they were able to quantify the benefit in dollars on the one going through the certification. And then I presented, I cannot give you that number, but it was a very significant number, right? It was to be able to do that. And then, the root causes, as I said, as you become a lot more, you have to, in order for you to become certified, you have to be able to be systematized, be able to do things and the repeating and stuff. And then, identify problems. I mean, there's a whole host of things that you have to be able to do to prove the certification level that you get. That of the entire business.
Wow.
So you have same company, two different sets. One was certified in food safety, the other one wasn't. And this one, the profits and the margins were much, much better than the other. So then we moved all of them to the certification.
Yeah.
That's just an example of how food safety and quality can bring business value. And again, being able to influence those decisions was a very, very huge win for our program.
Yeah, and you did it with data. I think that's so uncommon to present it easily, where a CEO can glance at it, they can read the report with University of Michigan and say, "Oh yeah, this makes sense." I feel like sometimes food safety quality people aren't conveying necessarily like the ROI or doing it in a really easy way.
Back to your original comment, you need to understand your audience, right?
Yeah.
You need to understand what their way of taking information is, and then you get to use their language to communicate your message in their language. Otherwise, no. And data is a huge one, right?
Yeah.
You're going to talk to a CFO, you better put it in dollars, right? You're going to talk to a marketing guy, you better put it into value, to customers, and you need to be able to manage that language to show the value that your programs and the things that you do for the organization bring.
Yeah,
yes,
that's so good. All right, so those are some challenges you've overcome. Any big mistake or regret in food safety quality looking back?
Not a mistake per se, but I wish I would have learned earlier in my career that in order for me to be successful in food safety, I had to tie it to the business success, where we just talked about. When I first went into it, and we went to that, I thought everybody wanted to do it because it's the right thing to do, regardless of it, in spite of anything else. And that was not necessarily bad, but it was not necessarily something that helped. I was always fighting. I always be able to do that. I had comments like, I was in the business prevention unit, right? I was, I was the bad news guy because I was very good to that. But by changing my approach and realizing what I just told you, that food safety, quality, consistency, all of those things have a business value that I can get to it, it changed everything. It changed the way I approach my leaders. It changed the way I communicated with my peers. It changed the way that I presented food safety and the benefits. It also changed what I asked for too, in a way that allowed me to be a lot more successful more at times. Before that, it was very frustrating. It was very isolating. I was me against the world, including in a company. After I changed that, then I became a lot more of a peer and a partner to sales, to marketing, to operations, to communications, to all of those guys, to the point that sometimes they can't seek my advice. How should we say this? Or what do you have that we can communicate to our customers? I mean,
Wow.
all kinds of things to be able to do that. So it was not necessary, if I would have realized that earlier, I think I could have done even a better job on my first part of my career. Um,
Yeah.
Eventually I came upon it, hit me in
Yeah.
the face with it, and I grew out of it.
That's great though. And it sounds like you've gotten more of the food safety quality things across the line because you were working collaboratively with those teams and tying it
Yeah.
to the business.
Yes,
That's great.
definitely. I haven't gotten everything I ever wanted, but I gotten the most of what I ever wanted, and
Wow.
definitely everything I ever needed. So that's I call that a very successful, record. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of successes, what's your Hall of Fame moment in food safety? And Jorge, don't be modest, don't be humble. Just like let it rip. What are you most proud of?
You already mentioned a couple of them, but you have, when we were doing the HACCP, helping spread the word about HACCP in the regulatory world, I think that was fantastic.
Yeah.
It got me there was at one time an FDA webcast to the entire United States regulators, and I was part of that. I was part of that webcast, be able to do that. That was something that made me very proud because I started to feel what I started doing in that health department, and then at the state health department, local, be able to do that was being copied and replicated and used at a broader level. It made me feel maybe I'm making an impact. But
Yeah.
the biggest one is the one I already mentioned too, is that creation of that training program. Oh, that was
Yeah.
amazing because it went in three parts. So we created the program and it sold and people like it and be able to. But then I worked with the Conference of Food Protection to develop the requirements for the FDA food code to require one certified manager in every restaurant and grocery store. Now, do that with the industry took us about 6-7 years to do that, but then we did that, right? So now you have the program, and now although one of the programs that was accepted, and then there's a requirement to do it. So the impact of the program grew even bigger. But the moment that I felt very proud of, and I'm still very proud of, is that years later, the CDC did a study and said that those certification programs, that requirement actually impacts safety.
Wow.
Organizations, they have a certified manager, they have a trained manager, produce safer food than the ones now. After
Yeah.
I think 8 years of study and stuff like that, they did that. That made me feel like I had a little part to do with that. And that was just, like you call it, one of those moments, where you feel like an Oscar, you receive some big award. I thought it was fantastic. There've been a
Yeah.
lot of nice things, but that stands out like, okay, I think I did something, that I tried to do from the beginning since I was a kid. I feel good about it. I'm not
Yeah.
done.
And such a full circle moment too, from being like, oh, I want to be a doctor, going a different path, and then the CDC is still, putting out publications of how you're making the world safer and honoring that work.
Yeah. And it wasn't me. I mean, it was teams and all the ways. But I was being part of that was extremely important to me. And I'm not done yet. But I'm still chasing more. To see
Yeah.
But I'm very very excited about it.
Amazing. Well, great. As we're chugging along here, what would you say is your hottest take in food safety right now?
I don't know how you feel about it, but from the inside, I feel like we live in a very, very exciting time.
Yeah.
I don't know how the Renaissance was coming from the Middle Ages, but I feel like the pace of change that we're seeing now is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. I've never seen it, I never experienced it, and it's just really breathtaking. From the risk side, so many risks are coming at us, from food safety, food fraud, food defense, change in the weather change is changing the way, we're finding a different risk at different times at different locations. The pathogens continue to evolve and change, be able to do that.
Yeah.
On the other side, we have technology, we have tools, we have AI, we have a lot of those things that can help us manage much better all of those risks in a more efficient and more effective way than we did 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or when I started my
Yeah.
career. So I feel like it's it's an incredibly new and exciting time. It's also a scary time. I just can't believe how much I'm learning, how much I feel like I need to learn too. The only thing that I can say is that nowadays I feel like our success is not limited by how much we can learn, but how much we can let go of the past and learn a new way of doing it. Because we get hung up on the things we're used to. We used to do it this way, embrace it and don't want to let go. Gosh, I mean, right now it's an incredible time. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but to me, it's like, man, everything is being so different. From lab tests, data use to all of that stuff. It's incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
So I'd say we're living in an extremely exciting time, and it doesn't look like it's going to die anytime soon.
Yeah. And like, we need it. If bacteria is changing, pathogens are changing, if we're like, I don't know, like Frank Giannis says, like if we're losing this fight against food safety over the last 20, 25 years, we need to embrace new technologies and lean into the excitement a little bit.
Yes, we do. And we need to learn new things, and we need to let go of the things that need to let go, because that's not the right way to do it anymore. Right. It's exciting. This AI really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff too. But I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's great.
Anymore.
Awesome. And then as we're wrapping up here shortly, I guess if you could give one piece of advice to the next generation of food safety leaders, what would it be?
What would it be? This is an exciting career. It's as exciting as you want it to be. It's one career where you can blend science, you can blend problem solving, and you can have an impact on people's lives all at the same time. Every single day, every decision that you make, it's going to have those kinds of repercussions. So it's exciting. If you like learning, I mean, there's a lot to learn. It's so broad. I mean, from fish to produce to fruits to vegetables. And guess what? Everybody needs to eat. So enjoy the ride. Find your place. Find the things that you like. There's so many niches and areas that you can enjoy. Wherever you feel most comfortable, do. But one thing that I'm going to say is, if you have a dream to make an impact, don't ever, 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 ever give up. You will find a way. There are no barriers. There are only lessons to learn, so you can overcome them and become better. So persevere.
Yeah, lean into the things that maybe scare you a little bit.
That's exactly right. Like I said, take a risk or lose the chance, right?
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. And then I guess last question, if you could only see one person get interviewed for 30 food safety, who would you like to see and why?
Oh man, that was a hard one. That is a really hard one, because there's so many people, and some of them might get upset if I don't mention them. But I just have so much respect for so many. I'm going to mention actually two, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
The first one, it would be Dr. Alberti from the Cheesecake Factory. And the reason is his personal background and story is so amazing. The things that he's been involved, are incredible. In the background, from the Jack in the Box when he was there, and all of the things he'd be able to see and do, and his personal background make a very, very great, compelling story, right? Something that I feel needs to be told, to people there, especially the young generation, to be able to do that. The things that he had to achieve and how to achieve it, I think it would be fantastic. The second one is actually for the young audiences, there's a young woman named Melody G. She works for Treehouse Foods, but she has a couple of other jobs. But she actually was either the co-founder or the founder of Women's in Food Safety. She's so passionate about it. I don't know if you met her, but she's so passionate. The way he talks about it, I mean, you just want to be, okay, let's do it. She just really believes in it wholeheartedly, whole soul. There's no way about it. Not only she believes in it, but she knows she's going to make it safe. She's going to make it happen. She's young, but man, her passion and her drive and her energy are contagious. And that's the kind of stories that you probably want, you want to showcase, so to show people, that's what it takes, and that's what it feels like to be, a food safety, person.
people
Got it.
that are go-getters and pushing it over the edge.
Exactly.
Amazing. Great. Well, we'll have to track down Al and Melody.
All right. Let me know. I can put you in contact
Awesome.
with them. Yeah, they would be fantastic. I think they would make a great story.
That would
All
be
right.
great. I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jorge. We really appreciate it. And thanks for jumping on in 30 Food Safety.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and best of luck. We'll talk to you later.